All right, so today we're diving into the world of real estate, specifically Cook County, Chicago.
Sounds exciting.
It does, right? And we're dissecting this presentation by Genius Star. He calls it Equity Empire. Have you seen this one?
I have, yeah. It's making the rounds. Lots of big promises in there.
Yeah, he's basically saying you can build a whole real estate empire without needing like $1 million to start with.
Right.
Which, I'm sure is appealing to a lot of people, especially a place like Cook County where, let's face it, real estate doesn't come cheap.
Definitely not.
So, on one hand, I'm always a little skeptical of anything that sounds too good to be true.
Right.
But on the other hand, I'm also open to, exploring different strategies.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power, right?
Exactly. So let's unpack Genius Star's claims and see what holds up, what might be a bit of a stretch, and what our listeners should really be paying attention to.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, so first up, he talks a lot about tax delinquent properties, basically properties where people haven't paid their taxes.
Right.
And he suggests that you can snap up these properties at auction for, sometimes pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, he makes it sound pretty tempting. Like you could get a property for the price of a used car.
Exactly. So what's the deal with these tax delinquent properties? Are they really the gold mine Genius Star makes them out to be?
Okay, so it is true that Cook County has auctions for properties with unpaid taxes. And sometimes, yes, those prices can seem unbelievably low.
Like how low are we talking?
I've seen properties go for a few $1,000s.
Wow. Okay, so what's the catch? There's got to be a catch.
Well, the thing is, those low prices usually come with a reason. And it's not always a good one. Before you even think about bidding on a tax delinquent property, you need to understand why those taxes went unpaid in the first place.
Okay, yeah. So it's probably not just a case of someone forgetting to pay their property tax bill.
Probably not. I mean, it could be something relatively minor, like, a paperwork issue or something, but it could also be a sign of much bigger problems.
Like what? Give me some examples. What kind of red flags should people be looking out for?
Well, for starters, the property itself might be in terrible shape. We're talking like major structural issues, foundation problems, roof damage, you name it. And that's just the stuff you can see. You could be looking at hidden problems like mold, asbestos, even like lead paint.
Wow, okay. That's a lot to consider. So it's not as simple as showing up at the auction with a wad of cash and hoping for the best.
Definitely not. You need to do your due diligence, big time.
What does that even mean in this context? Like, what specific steps should people be taking?
Well, first off, you need to thoroughly research the property, find out its history, check for any outstanding liens or code violations. If possible, get yourself a professional inspection.
Okay, so knowledge is power. Got it. Now, besides the potential pitfalls with the properties themselves, are there any other challenges with these tax lien auctions that people should be aware of?
Yeah, absolutely. The legal side of things can get complicated. Cook County has its own set of rules and regulations for these auctions, and you need to understand them thoroughly before you even think about bidding.
So if you're not a lawyer, maybe bring one along for the ride.
Exactly, or at least consult with one beforehand. It's not something you want to navigate on your own.
All right, so we've covered tax delinquent properties. Genius Star also talks a lot about surplus properties. What's the deal with those?
So surplus properties are basically properties that the government, whether it's the city of Chicago, Cook County, or even the federal government, doesn't need anymore. And they often sell these properties at a discount.
Okay, so we're talking government auctions,
Yeah.
HUD homes, things like that.
Exactly.
And these discounts can be pretty significant, right?
They can be. It's not uncommon to see properties listed for significantly less than market value, but just like with tax delinquent properties, there's usually a reason for those discounts.
Let me guess, those reasons aren't always good.
You got it. Often, these surplus properties have been neglected. We're talking deferred maintenance, outdated systems, maybe even some damage, and those repairs can add up fast.
So that fixer-upper might need more fixing than you'd bargained for.
Exactly.
All right, so it sounds like we're seeing a theme here. Whether we're talking about tax delinquent properties or surplus properties, that initial excitement over a potential bargain needs to be balanced with a healthy dose of caution.
100%. You really need to go in with your eyes wide open and be prepared to do your homework.
Speaking of homework, Genius Star also talks a lot about owner financing as a way to buy property, even if you don't have a ton of cash up front. Is that something worth considering?
It can be, but as with everything else we've talked about, there are definitely pros and cons to weigh.
All right, let's unpack those. what are the potential benefits of owner financing that Genius Star might be highlighting?
Sure. So with owner financing, instead of going through a traditional mortgage lender, you essentially work directly with the seller. They become the bank.
Interesting. So you're basically cutting out the middleman.
In a way, yes, and that can come with some advantages. For example, you might be able to negotiate a lower down payment or more flexible loan terms, things like that.
Okay, I can see how that would be appealing, especially if you're having trouble qualifying for a traditional mortgage.
Exactly, and because you're dealing directly with the seller, the approval process can be faster and less complicated.
So it sounds like there's a lot of potential upside to owner financing.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing there are also some potential downsides that Genius Star might not be mentioning.
You got it. There are always two sides to every coin, and owner financing is no exception. We should probably delve into those potential downsides next.
Okay, let's do it. What are the gotchas that people need to watch out for when considering owner financing?
Well, for starters with owner financing, you really need to scrutinize the loan terms.
Okay, so what should people be looking out for specifically?
One big one is something called a balloon payment.
A balloon payment? What's that?
So basically, it's a large lump sum payment that's due at the end of the loan term.
Oh, okay.
And if you're not prepared for it, it can be a real budget buster.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you're cruising along, making your payments, and then bam, this huge bill comes due.
Exactly. You really need to know if a balloon payment is part of the deal and if you can handle it when the time comes.
Got it. Okay, so what else? Anything else to watch out for with these owner financing agreements?
Yeah, you'll also want to look out for prepayment penalties.
I've heard that term before.
But so a prepayment penalty is basically a fee that you have to pay if you pay off the loan early.
Oh, okay.
Which you might be tempted to do if you come into some extra cash.
Right, like you want to get ahead.
Exactly. But with some of these owner financing agreements, you might end up paying more in the long run if you try to get rid of that debt too quickly.
Gotcha. So it's all about reading the fine print.
Always read the fine print.
Okay, so we've talked about tax delinquent properties, surplus properties, owner financing Genius Star, also raves about FHA loans as a way to get into a house with, not a ton of money down.
Yeah.
What are those all about?
Sure. So FHA loans are insured by the Federal Housing Administration.
Okay.
And they're designed to help people who might not qualify for a traditional mortgage.
So first-time home buyers, people with maybe not perfect credit.
Exactly. And Genius Star is right about one thing. FHA loans often come with lower down payment requirements, sometimes as low as 3.5%.
Which is huge, especially here in Cook County where housing prices are no joke.
Absolutely. It can be the difference between buying a place and renting for years.
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the catch? Because I'm assuming there's a catch.
There is. To offset the risk for lenders, FHA loans require something called mortgage insurance.
Okay, and what is that?
Basically, it's an insurance policy that protects the lender if you default on the loan.
Makes sense. So the lender's taking on more risk with that lower down payment, so they want to make sure they're covered.
Exactly. And that mortgage insurance comes with a cost. You'll pay an upfront premium and then annual premiums as well.
Gotcha. So it's like an extra expense on top of your regular mortgage payment.
Exactly.
Okay, so FHA loans, lower down payment, but you're paying for it with those mortgage insurance premiums. Makes sense. Now, what about these down payment assistance programs that Genius Star mentioned? Are those for real?
Oh yeah, they're definitely real.
Okay.
Cook County, like a lot of places, has programs specifically designed to help people with down payments and closing costs. We're talking grants, low interest loans, all sorts of things.
Wow, that's amazing. And these programs are specifically for Cook County.
Yeah, a lot of them are local or county specific. They're designed to make homeownership more accessible for people in the community.
That's fantastic. So how do people even find out about these programs? I feel like they're kind of like the best kept secret in real estate.
I know, right? It can be tough to navigate. A good place to start is by reaching out to a housing counselor or a lender who specializes in these types of programs. They can help you figure out what's available and if you qualify.
Okay, so do your research, talk to the experts. Got it. Now, shifting gears a bit, Genius Star also touched on rent to own as a way to, I guess, kind of ease into homeownership. Is that something worth considering?
It can be, but you really need to do your homework and understand the terms of the agreement.
Okay, so break it down for me. How does rent to own actually work?
So basically, with a rent to own agreement, part of your monthly rent payment goes towards potentially purchasing the property down the road.
Interesting. So it's like you're locking in a price and building equity at the same time.
That's the idea. But the details are super important. You need to make sure the purchase price is clearly stated in the agreement and that you're comfortable with it.
Okay, yeah, because what if the market changes and the property value goes down?
Exactly. You also want to be crystal clear on who's responsible for what during the rental period.
Okay, good point. Like repairs and maintenance, things like that.
Exactly. Is it on you as the renter? Or is the owner still responsible? Those details need to be spelled out in the agreement.
Right. You don't want any surprises down the line. All right, so we've talked about a lot of different ways to, potentially get your foot in the door in the Cook County real estate market. But Genius Star also talks a lot about leveraging equity to build your wealth even faster.
Yeah.
What's his take on that?
So he's really big on using your home's equity to acquire other assets. He talks about things like cash out refinancing, HELOCs, even using rental income to fund your lifestyle.
Okay, so let's unpack those, starting with cash out refinancing. What is that exactly?
Sure. So with cash out refinancing, you're basically taking out a new, larger mortgage on your home. You get the difference between the new mortgage and what you owed on your old mortgage in cash. And you can use that cash for, pretty much anything.
So you're tapping into your home's value to free up some cash. Interesting. What are the pros and cons of that approach?
Well, the big pro is obviously that you get a chunk of cash that you can use however you want. Home renovations, debt consolidation, investments, you name it. But the downside is that you're increasing your overall debt. Your new mortgage is bigger, which means higher monthly payments.
And potentially higher interest rates too.
Exactly. So you really need to weigh the pros and cons carefully before you go down that road.
Got it. So not a decision to be taken lightly.
Yeah.
Wait, now what about ELOS? Genius Star mentioned those too. How do they work?
So a ELOC, or home equity line of credit, is basically like a credit card that's secured by your home. You can borrow against your home's equity up to a certain limit.
Okay, so instead of getting a lump sum of cash, like with cash out refinancing, you have access to a revolving line of credit.
Exactly. And you only pay interest on the amount you actually borrow. So it can be a more flexible option than cash out refinancing.
Okay. I like the sound of that. But there's got to be a downside, right?
Well, there always is.
You're catching on. The main downside with ELOCs is that they often come with variable interest rates.
Meaning the interest rate can fluctuate over time. So your monthly payments can go up or down, depending on what's happening with interest rates in general.
Which can make budgeting a little trickier.
Exactly. So if you like predictability, a HELOC might not be the best fit.
Got it. Okay, so we've covered cash out refinancing. We've covered ELOCs. Now, Genius Star also talks about using rental income to fund your lifestyle, which, sounds pretty amazing in theory, but is that realistic? It does sound like the dream your money working for you, bringing in that passive income from those rental properties.
It can be a great way to build wealth, but passive might be a bit of a misnomer. Building a successful rental portfolio takes effort, it takes strategy, and it takes a realistic understanding of the work involved.
So what are the key things someone should consider before diving headfirst into the world of rental properties?
Location, location, location. It's like the golden rule of real estate for a reason. Choosing properties in areas with high rental demand is going to make all the difference. If you can keep those units occupied, that rental income keeps flowing.
Makes sense. A vacant property doesn't exactly pay the bills, right?
Exactly. And then there's the whole property management side of things.
Yeah.
Are you prepared to be the point person for tenant screening, rent collection, maintenance requests, late night plumbing emergencies?
Oh boy. That doesn't sound very passive at all.
It's definitely something to think about. Now, you can hire a property manager to handle those responsibilities, but that comes with its own costs, obviously. And whether you're DIYing it or outsourcing, you'll need to factor in those expenses. Things like potential vacancies, repairs, property taxes, insurance. Those costs can add up quickly.
So Genius Star's vision of sipping lemonade on a beach while the rental income rolls in might need a little reality check.
It's more about treating it like a business. Successful rental property owners are savvy investors. They do their research, they manage their properties effectively, they make smart decisions to maximize their returns.
It sounds like knowledge and careful planning are key here. This entire deep dive has been so insightful. We've really explored the ins and outs of Genius Star's equity empire strategies, and I think we've uncovered both the exciting opportunities and the potential pitfalls.
Exactly. And I think the biggest takeaway is that while real estate can be a fantastic wealth building tool, it's not a get-rich-quick scheme. It takes time, it takes effort, and it takes a willingness to learn and adapt.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So for our listeners who are out there thinking, okay, I'm ready to start building my own real estate empire, what's our advice? What's the one thing you want them to take away from this deep dive?
Don't rush into anything. Knowledge is power. Do your research. Connect with experienced professionals, real estate attorneys, financial advisors, and don't be afraid to ask questions. The more you know going in, the better equipped you'll be to make smart decisions and achieve your real estate goals.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Cook County real estate. We've learned that Genius Star's strategies might hold some potential, but success in this game really comes down to thorough research, careful planning, and a healthy dose of skepticism. Remember, building a real estate empire takes time, but with the right information and a healthy dose of caution, you can make informed decisions and work toward achieving those real estate dreams. Thanks for listening, everyone.